Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Paul Kelly. I'm the External Affairs and Corporate Responsibility Director for Asda. It's my pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. I'm slightly wary when someone says, will you give a masterclass, because it puts a huge pressure on your shoulders that somehow you're going to impart lots of wisdom and silver bullets to age-old solutions. If that's your expectation, I suspect you will be slightly disappointed. The best that I can do is hope to share some insights and some knowledge from our perspective as a retailer, but also my perspective, having spent probably 20-25 years in and around the food industry, through the hospitality industries, through the contract catering industry, interestingly at the time of Jamie's school dinners, and I'll talk a little bit about school meals in the context of this presentation, and for the last 3 years at Asda, Britain's second biggest retailer. But it's also something that interests me fundamentally from a personal perspective. I grew up on a farm in Staffordshire. My family still farms there, and I was hugely fortunate in that from a very early age I was connected with where my food came from and understood the importance of a healthy diet and exercise. And it seems to me that some of the things we'll probably touch on today are all about reconnection, and how can we reconnect young people with food, farming, and the importance of diet and exercise. Outside of my work at Asda, I in the past have been on the government nutrition strategy steering group. I was on the school meals review panel that came up with the guidelines for school lunches, and I chaired the government review of vending machines and snacks in schools, which removed a lot of the confectionery, the carbonated drinks and some of the unhealthy products from schools. I still sit on the board of the School Food Trust, and I'm still, though I don't know whether it's going to be cold in the bonfire of the Quangos, a member of the Government's Council of Food Policy Advisors. So it gives me a sort of rounded view from farm to fork of the food industry. I suppose in terms of encouraging children to eat healthily, we're all familiar with the problem, and whether it's through humour or whether it's through other imagery, we know that the whole issue of childhood obesity, how we encourage children to eat healthily, is a massive problem, and it's storing up problems for the future, as well as possibly ensuring that young people are not going to be able to reach their full potential. And the problem's well scoped out, and you've probably talked about it in the plenaries and the masterclasses this morning, with over a third of children overweight or obese, perhaps simplistically overconsumption of salt, fats and sugars, and an underconsumption of fruit and vegetables, and a lack of physical exercise. One of the other things which I think is important, and it came home to me in the work that we did through the school meals from 2005 onwards, was that we originally thought, if we can get it right in primary schools, if we can get the food right in primary schools, we will go a long way to solving the problem. And actually it was this realisation that dietary habits were being set much, much earlier, before there's even an entry into formal education nursery. Children's dietary habits were getting very set. So it really does put an emphasis back onto what is the role of the food industry in helping mums at those very, very early stages, and perhaps supporting the work of Sure Start and children's centres in helping give babies the best possible start in life. I also have a view that we're a very odd nation when it comes to food. There are television channels dedicated to the cooking of food. Delia Smith can top the bestseller chart. She can cause our shelves to be empty of cranberries or olive oil or whatever it happens to be. So we have this voyeuristic relationship with food. We watch, but we don't necessarily do. This lack of practical cooking skills. So you're seeing now the appearance of sort of the third generation of children who don't have sort of practical cooking skills because mum did it or grandma did it, or until very recently they've had the opportunity to be able to cook and get hands-on with food in schools. And whilst that's probably a very, very simplistic view of the problem, it's very much the view that we get, and I'll talk a lot today about what our customers tell us. Because one of the things that's very important for us is health matters to us as a retailer. Now that may sound slightly counterintuitive. But at the end of the day, I've always said, I don't mind particularly what we sell. Actually, I'd prefer, we're as happy as a business to sell healthier food rather than non-healthier food. We've just got to be part of helping encourage people to want to eat better. And looking at it from children's point of view, for me, it's two concentric and interrelated circles. We sell food, but we must also encourage activity. And that's about giving mums advice that they can act on. The relationship between supermarkets and their customers in terms of trust is very, very high. We did some work last year looking at trust in the wake of the financial crisis and what kind of organisations were trusted. And up at the top of the Trust League was the NHS, the BBC, the science community. At the bottom, not surprisingly, the banks and the politicians. But right up there as well were the supermarkets. But there was a caveat coming back from customers. You haven't let us down yet. And that was, it was quite a wake-up call, because it actually said the importance of being transparent with customers and building that trust through engagement is really important. And I'll touch a little bit on how we're doing that. The other side is recognising it isn't just about engaging mums, but kids are hugely important. And I suspect we've all stood in the supermarket and heard little Jimmy or little Jane screaming about they want this or they want that. Pest to power is enormously important. And very often we think about pest to power being for bad, but actually it can be for good as well, as long as it's about engaging young people and children and saying, actually, can we get them to change parental behaviour? We've seen some of that happening in climate change, and some of the work we're seeing and some of the feedback we're now getting from customers. They're making decisions to buy more sustainable products because what their children are learning at school and coming back and saying, Mummy, can we do this, can we do that, because we want to save the polar bears or the whales or the planet. The same, I think, is true in health, and it's how we unlock that ability to create that pest to power to work positively. And the third element is about supporting teachers. And lots and lots of companies inundate teachers with curriculum packs and advice and what have you. But we've put some resources there that can help help teachers and schools in this whole area of how do we create an environment in which children want to eat healthily. And one of the things that we said very clearly from the school meals review panel work we did was that having whole school food policies were a really important part of changing the culture around food in schools. Children eat broadly a third of their meals in schools during term time. Maybe if they're a breakfast club or an after-school activity, it's a lot more than that. And not having an approach where you have a whole school food policy, where you only had the school lunch, but you weren't doing something about food brought into schools or guidance on lunch boxes or guidance on what was available in after-school clubs, seemed to us to be a lost opportunity to create an environment where children got used to the concept of healthy food and food that is tasty and enjoyable. And it isn't just about stressing health to children, it's about taste, it's about fun, and it's about engagement. So 3 years ago, we set ourselves a mission, which was to help mums raise healthy kids, eat their 5 a day, and get moving. And we developed a brand called Great Stuff, which was aimed at children aged 3 through to about 11 or 12. And it was specifically designed with children as the customer, not their mothers, but children as the customers. And I'll talk a bit about how that's developed. And it started from really understanding what was important to mums and what was important to their children. And what is important to mums is natural. That comes through very, very strongly. Natural is rather more important than organic. Organic is an important part of the Great Stuff brand, but natural, free from added colourings, added flavourings, as natural a product as you can get is absolutely important. And what this drove for us was a project that we call NAFNAC, which was no artificial flavourings, no artificial colourings.